Number 10 on this list is Queen Margaret II. She's the Queen of Denmark as well as supreme authority of the Church of Denmark. Born on the 16th of April in 1940, she has a net worth of $40 million according to sources online, which lands her on this list. If she's considered poor, I'm fairly concerned for my future, but in comparison to the other royals, she isn't exactly most paid royal, and earns a lot of her income through grants from her citizens. She's still an active queen and still actively gets more rich, so maybe next year she'll get off this list. Otumfo Osei Tutu II is the king of his kingdom and comes in at number 2 with a staggering $10 million to his name. He has developed this income through literal gold mines within his country, along with his company that provides mining equipment to multiple major mining companies in Ghana. Unfortunately, he's on this list, but he has found major success in his company and for his country, so numbers don't do justice to his story. He's helped build a better economy for Ghana with the use of his mining company, as Ghana has a large amount of gold. Fun fact, he worked in Toronto, Canada at an insurance company for 4 years. He returned to Ghana in 1989 where he started his company and soon became king. Now this next royal family on the list is difficult. Number 9, the House of Orange-Nassau. This is the Dutch royal family, and while their history is of the richest royalties, they are very secretive on their wealth. Unreliable sources have said that the Prince of the House of Orange has a net worth of 1.5 million, but the Dutch royals hide their wealth, and anyone who knows about their incomes stays silent on the subject. Which to me means either they got a ton of money and would prefer not to lose it in taxes, or they got none and they don't want to be considered poor. Either or, their silence is landing them on this list. I guess we'll never really know, but let me know what you think in the comments. Adding to number 9 is number 8, King William Alexander, who is the king of the House of Orange. He earns about $1.1 million as the king of Holland. The reason he's on this list is because, again, their income may be low compared to other royals and they might be hiding it. It is believed that they could have a secret fortune of $4.1 billion. They're very secretive royals, and it makes you wonder if the poorest royals are a front for the money that they rest upon. Makes me curious. I wish I had hidden away millions, but King William is said to earn roughly $1.1 million, so hidden money or not, it did land him a spot in this list. This may be the most modest royal family in the world. Number 7, House of Oldenburg, Norway. This Norwegian family is still rich, don't get me wrong, but they are so humble about their fortune. Often they're seen riding public transit and dressing very casual for events and gatherings. They even bring their kids to public school over being homeschooled. They may be royal, but they act like everyone else, and I love to see it. You can tell they have strong values, all whilst the king withholds a net worth of $30 million alongside Olympic trophies. What a true king at that. I put them at number 7 due to the fact that they may have the money to outspend the royalty above them, but they're humble and live an honest life. They don't flaunt their fortune, which is a very good quality to have. Number 6, King Philip. The King of Spain has recently released his net worth as the government pushed to start being more transparent with their residents. He's announced that his net worth is a shocking $2.1 million. I say that as if I have more, that to which I can assure you I don't, but it is significantly lower than the royalty listed above. I will note that most of these royal families possess significant inheritance along with assets and allowances. So he is still rich, he's just most likely releasing liquid income and not including assets and inheritance. But we'll never really know how much money he has. King Philip, if you do have some extra cash that you're hiding, I promise no one will look in my bank account if you just want to keep it there. Number 5, King Tupa of Tonga. Tonga is a Polynesian kingdom with more than 170 islands in the South Pacific. Of the 170 islands, there are 45 that are inhabited. With a very small population of 108,000 people, Tonga is not large, therefore their royalty must not have a lot of money. Wrong! The Tonga king has an estimated $5 million net worth, which per capita is actually a large amount. Tonga also has a large poverty rate, which is due to the 24% of their land allowing them to grow crops. Maybe the king should spread some love and boost their economy. But I mean, what do I know? I'm nowhere near having 5 mil. Unfortunately, because of Tonga's location, their economy struggles to thrive, and they make the majority of their income through tropical fruits and tourism, which seems to go right to their king. The number 4 spot goes to Luis Alfonso de Bourbon. The rich inheritance ruling over multiple European countries has come to an end with a small living bloodline and a new government form taking over. The head of the house has a net worth of $1.5 million, which is earth-shattering compared to the riches the family possessed before. I'm sure he and his family are still doing alright though. I mean, at the end of the day, how many people can say they're royalty? Located in France, the monarchy has been overthrown and restored many times throughout history, so I can see where their money has gone. Louis is the head of the French portion of the House of Bourbon, but times are difficult for the monarch and it seems that they don't get the same respect other royalties do. Number 9. Tuatea Paki. He is the current king of Maori in New Zealand and has been since 2006. Finding information on his income and earnings is difficult, but after some digging it is stated he has a net worth of between $800K and $1 million. I mean, no complaints there as long as that money's still kicking around. At 67 years old, he had success within the throne, and I'm sure will keep his duties as long as possible. He recently denied a meeting between him and England's royals. That was nothing to do with the video, but it's a cool fact I learned while making the video, so I thought I'd share. Okay, number 10 is not royalty, I'll be transparent, but he's a great guy, so hear me out. The president of Uruguay. This president has the heart of a lion. He donates about 90% of his monthly salary, equivalent to $12,000 to charity. He explained in an interview that he lived a humble life up until being elected president and at his age finds no reason to change that. He said he's happy sitting on his farm with his dog and doesn't want anything to change. After donating his salary, he's left with roughly $775 a month. He donates to entrepreneurs and less fortunate of his country. He's quoted saying, "Poor's a mindset. I don't feel poor, but instead I have freedom." I think he's a major indicator that there are amazing people out there, like everyone who is subscribed to the rich life.
Number 10, Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew announced his decision to, quote, step back from royal duties in November 2019 in the wake of backlash to his interviews surrounding his relationship with disgraced financier and convicted intimate offender Jeff. It has become clear to me over the last few days that the circumstances relating to my former association with Jeff has become a major disruption to my family's work and the valuable work going on in the many organizations and charities that I am proud to support, he said in a statement. Therefore, I have asked Her Majesty if I may step back from public duties for the foreseeable future, and she has given her permission. Since the interview, the Queen's second son has been widely criticized for not showing empathy for the victims of Jeff, who passed by taking his own life in jail in New York City in August while awaiting trial on multiple intimate charges, and for his decision to stay at the financier's New York home in December 2010. That came just months after Jeff had served 13 months of an 18-month sentence. Andrew also said he had no recollection of ever meeting Virginia, who alleges she was forced to be intimate with the royal 3 times between 1999 and 2002, in London, New York, and on a private Caribbean island owned by Jeff when she was 17 years old. Number 9, Princess Martha Louise. In 2019, the Norwegian royal agreed to stop using her princess designation for her business activities, but retained it while working in her official capacity as a royal, after the Norwegian royal family objected to the title of her princess and the shaman, speaking to her with her American fiancé, spiritual guide and gifted healer Shaman Durek. In 2022, she went a step further, relinquishing all her royal patronages and stepping back from serving in a working role as a royal, in order, quote, to create a clear dividing line between her business activities and her role as a member of the royal family. Number 8. The Swedish royal grandchildren. As of August 2019, the 5 grandchildren of King Carl XVI Gustaf and Queen Sylvia of Sweden are no longer members of the Swedish royal house after their grandfather removed their titles of their royal highness. All will retain their titles of prince and princess, but these titles will become personal and any future spouses or children will not have a right to them. The purpose of the retraction was to cut back on the royal duties the children would be expected to perform. Number 7, Princess Mako. Mako, a niece of Japan's Emperor Naruhito, married her longtime love, Kikamuro, in a simple ceremony at a registry office on October 26. In marrying Ki, who is not of royal descent, she gives up her royal title and everything that comes with it. The couple declared their intent to marry 4 years ago, but negative public sentiment and her father's withheld approval, plus Ki's enrollment in Fordham Law School, postponed the wedding until now. Princess Mako, who turned down the $1.3 million usually given by the government to royal women who lose their status through marriage, revealed that she had PTSD as a result of consistent negative attacks through the media. I am very sorry for the inconvenience caused, and I am grateful for those who have continued to support me, she said at her wedding, according to the BBC. For me, Ki is irreplaceable. Marriage was a necessary choice for us. Number 6, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. On January 8th, 2020, Prince Harry and Meghan announced their plans to step back as senior royals and split their time between the UK and North America. The couple wrote, "After many months of reflection and internal discussions, we have chosen to make the transition this year and starting to carve out a progressive new role within the institution. We intend to step back as senior members of the royal family and work to become financially independent, while continuing to fully support Her Majesty the Queen. It is with your encouragement, particularly over the last few years, that we feel prepared to make this adjustment. We now plan to balance our time between the United Kingdom and North America, continuing to honor our duty to the Queen, the Commonwealth, and our patronages. This geographic balance will enable us to raise our son with an appreciation for the royal tradition into which he was born, while also providing our family with the space to focus on the next chapter, including the launch of our new charitable entity." While the couple retain their HRH titles, they are not permitted to use them. Harry and Meghan now live in Santa Barbara with their children Archie and Lilibet. Number 5. The children of Princess Anne and Prince Edward. When one looks at the history of the modern British royals, Harry and Meghan's choice had a clear precedent. Two of the Queen's children, Princess Anne and Prince Edward, decided against making their children princes and princesses, opting to let them live a more normal life in accordance with their likely futures. Anne's children, Peter and Zara, do not have titles at all, while Edward's children, Lady Louise and James, Viscount Severin, go by secondary titles as happens with the earls. The prince is currently not a duke. While the choices aligned with the hierarchy guidelines, the Queen's children did show a clear preference for these ultimate results. Number 4. Edward VIII. Prince Harry wasn't the first one to fall in love with an American with a marriage history, though the international romance that preceded this did not have as warm of a reception. Back in 1936, not even being the king would protect Edward VIII from the controversy over his desire to wed divorced socialite Wallis Simpson. Due to opposition from prime ministers and the Church of England, it would be impossible for the monarch to easily remain on the throne after going through with the marriage, so he decided to abdicate and pass his position to his brother, who became George VI. Number 3. Juan Carlos I. After Spain re-established its constitutional monarchy in 1978, King Juan Carlos I enjoyed a popular reign for nearly 40 years as he helped his country in its transition to democracy. After some scandals and minor health problems, the monarch decided to abdicate the throne in 2014, citing the reason for his decision to be personal out of a combination of his aging status and his desire for his son to have a long reign. He closely followed Pope Benedict XVI, Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands, and King Albert II of Belgium in this move, highlighting a trend towards a retirement of sorts for those with lifetime positions. Juan Carlos I retired from official duties altogether in June 2019. Number 2. Archie Mountbatten-Windsor. When Prince Harry and Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, announced that they were expecting their first child, there was a lot of talk about what titles the new royal would ultimately receive. Unlikely to directly ascend to the throne, the baby wasn't automatically entitled to become a prince or princess, so the world was contemplating whether Queen Elizabeth II would make a special exception, or if the child would receive a secondary title like the Earl of Dumbarton, which Harry shares. The couple decided against giving their son a title at all, and instead named him Archie Harrison Mountbatten-Windsor, or Master Archie for short. Number 1. Diana, Princess of Wales. Upon divorcing Prince Charles in 1996, the former future queen lost the official designation of Her Royal Highness, meaning that much of the former royal protocol she once enjoyed no longer applied. She did, however, retain an allowance, her apartment at Kensington Palace, and the ability to use St. James's Palace to entertain, as well as certain royal privileges, like the use of the aircraft of the Royal Squadron. So all was not lost. But maybe it wasn't her choice at all, passing away and losing her status. They say she was fed up with incessant press attention and intrusions into her private life, so Diana faked her passing. But Paul, one of Diana's former butlers, said that the princess predicted her own passing in a car crash. Apparently she was so scared 10 minutes before her passing, she wrote to Paul saying that there was a plot made by a member of the royal family, and that her car's brakes would be tampered with and she would suffer serious head injuries. And all of this would be so that the Prince of Wales could marry again, because in the royal family one isn't supposed to divorce and remarry, so the only way it would be allowed is if she passed away. The letter she wrote read, "I am sitting here at my desk today in October, longing for someone to hug me and encourage me to keep strong and hold my head high. This particular phase of my life is the most dangerous. My husband is planning an accident in my car, brake failure and serious head injury in order to make the path clear for him to marry Tiggy. Camilla is nothing but a decoy." Number 10. Donald Trump. Former President Donald Trump came to fame as a bash New York real estate developer with an outrageous hairstyle, high-profile romantic exploits, and a gift for self-promotion. Trump inherited the family business from his father Fred Trump, a successful New York City builder and landlord. 6 Trump-owned businesses filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the late 1990s and 2000s. 5 were gaming enterprises, including the famed Trump Taj Mahal and its parent company, Trump Hotels and Casinos Resorts. Most occurred during or following the major real estate downturns of the early 1990s and middle to late 2000s. The first bankruptcy filed in 1991 was arguably the most devastating for Trump's lifestyle. Trump funded the $1 billion Trump Taj Mahal with loads of high-interest debt. Within a year of opening, the property was more than $3 billion in the hole, and Trump was personally on the hook for $900 million. Trump Hotels and Casinos Resorts was more than $1.8 billion in debt when it first filed for Chapter 11 in 2004. So overall, to summarize, he's broke and a really stupid person. Number 9. William McKinley. Before he was president, William McKinley was so broke he almost quit politics completely. In 1891, after William McKinley had been elected governor of Ohio, a major financial institution came after him for approximately $130,000. A few years prior, McKinley had helped Robert Walker, a businessman and former associate, launch a business by co-signing a loan. The Panic of 1893 resulted in the demise of Walker's business, and little did McKinley know that Walker had taken advantage of his trusting nature and tricked him into assuming 100% responsibility of the loan. Walker went bankrupt and left the newly elected governor with the bill from the bank. McKinley was then going to resign as governor in order to go back to practicing law, where he could make more money. However, two of his political supporters, Mark Hanna and H.H. Colsatt, saw presidential potential in McKinley and raised the funds required to bail McKinley out. President William McKinley's financial burden serves as a constant reminder: be careful when co-signing and try to always have super rich friends who can bail you out of a $100,000 jam. Number 8. George Washington. In the late 1760s, George Washington went completely broke when his tobacco farm flopped. Washington went into business with a British merchant named Robert Carey. Washington grew the tobacco and Carey distributed it. As you can probably guess, it did not go so well. Washington believed that Carey was selling his tobacco for too cheap and mismanaging his supplies. Within a few years of business, Washington's farm began to hemorrhage money. But Carey agreed to finance the whole endeavor on credit until Washington's business improved. Washington ultimately fell into so much debt that he began feeling like a prisoner. By 1773, Carey and Washington had an unsalvageable business relationship. The passing of Washington's daughter, along with the decision to diversify his crops, left Washington with just enough money to settle his debt. By 1774, he was able to settle his debt with Carey and sever all business ties with him. George Washington remained so poor that in order to go to Philadelphia to preside over the Constitutional Convention, he had to borrow money from George Mason. Number 7. Harry Truman. Harry S. Truman went broke well before he became president due to a failed business venture. In 1921, future President Truman and his business partner Eddie Jacobson opened a haberdashery called Truman and Jacobson Haberdashery. Business was initially great, as Truman and Jacobson were both veterans, and brought that military-grade work ethic into their shop. Unfortunately, no amount of hard work could have prepared the duo for the recession following the Great Depression, and in 1921 their business failed, leaving them both broke and nearly bankrupt. Truman refused to file for bankruptcy and insisted he back all his debts. He used connections made from his shop to land other jobs. He eventually paid off his debt in the 1930s. However, that wasn't the last of Truman's financial issues. In 1954, when Truman finished serving his second term as president, he had no savings, support, or income besides a $112 per month pension from the Army. Truman had lived without a significant source of income until 1958, when Eisenhower enacted the Former President's Act in 1958, which provided Truman with a presidential pension. Presidential historians often regard Truman as one of the least wealthy presidents in modern history. Number 6. Bill Clinton. When President Bill Clinton left office in 2001, he was burdened by major legal bills stemming from his infidelity scandal, impeachment trial, and action to suspend his law license. During his presidency, Clinton had to hire a group of defense attorneys and racked up to $16 million in debt. But in just his first year out of the White House, Clinton earned nearly $14 million, giving 57 speeches, and he managed to achieve solvency within 3 years. Number 5. Ulysses S Grant. In the 1880s, Ulysses S. Grant lost practically every dollar he had to a Ponzi scheme. After losing his bid for re-election, Grant moved to New York City to go into business with Grant & Ward, an investment firm run by his son, Ulysses S. Grant Jr., and his business partner Ferdinand Ward. Ward was described as a young, charming people-pleaser with a talent for persuading investors to give up their money. Initially, Grant & Ward was a huge success. However, Grant Sr. soon discovered that Ward was taking investor money and using it to fund his own lavish lifestyle. In May 1884, Grant and Ward had failed, leaving the Civil War hero and former president absolutely broke. Desperate for money, Grant eventually turned to writing as a source of income. Unfortunately, in 1884, he was diagnosed with throat cancer due to years of smoking. Fearful he would leave his family completely broke, Grant immediately began furiously writing his autobiography. In 1885, Grant then passed almost immediately after finishing his memoirs. Though he never lived to see it, the book was successful enough to ensure his family's financial welfare. Number 4. James Monroe. Due to an extensive career in public positions that paid poorly and demanded expenses for entertainment and protocol, James Monroe was crushed with financial obligations when he left the White House after his second term. For the next several years, he spent time pursuing the government for thousands of dollars due to him for past services. Eventually, the government did pay him a portion of the funds he wanted, and Monroe was able to leave a sizable inheritance for his family when he passed in 1831. On July 4th, the third of 5 founding father presidents to do so. Number 3. Abraham Lincoln. In 1832, several years before he became president, Abraham Lincoln opened a business with a friend, but the business was unsuccessful and sank into the red. When the partner passed, Lincoln decided to bear the brunt of the debt rather than saddle his friend's grieving family with it. Creditors went after Lincoln in court, and the sheriff took his only remaining assets, his horse and some surveying gear. He was then efficiently bankrupt before today's bankruptcy laws were on the books. Number 2. James Garfield. James Garfield was probably the poorest man ever to become president. He was born in a log cabin, and his father passed when the future president was still a toddler. The family was then plunged into poverty. Garfield worked on canal boats and as a janitor and a carpenter to pay the bills while reading and studying his own before getting into college. He would become a professor, a lawyer, a minister, a Civil War hero, and finally President of the United States. Though he achieved the highest office in the land, Garfield still had very little money to his name when his life was cut short by an assassin's bullet in 1881. Number 1. Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson spent his life in perpetual debt, always borrowing money with the hopes of impressing his peers with expensive clothing, fine wines, and his house. Jefferson borrowed money from everyone, even one of his slaves. Can you believe the nerve this guy had? Other factors, however, definitely contributed to Jefferson's debt problem. For starters, his agricultural business ventures continued to drain him of money. He also inherited debt from his father-in-law's passing and a loan he co-signed. Things progressively got worse for Jefferson. He eventually took on new loans just to pay the interest on old loans. In 1826, Jefferson petitioned the Virginia legislature to sponsor a lottery for his belongings. While the legislature eventually approved this, it only raised a fraction of the money Jefferson needed. On July 4th, 1826, Jefferson had then passed with over $100,000 in debt. But that is all. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.